Is this any different?
More than usual.
Hello everyone, you're here with me, Juliette Bryant, on Wise Women Weekdays, and I'm also joined by two amazingly vibing women who are vibing, Laura Mitchell and Melissa Amos, and we're here to talk body image, hormones, spirituality, all that kind of jazz.
All the good stuff.
Exactly, and we're actually sat at a spa. So we've been having a really nice day. We just had a lovely meal and we found a little quiet corner in which to reach out to all of you.
It's gorgeous in here.
It is, isn't it?
Lush, yeah, it really is.
So what I want to talk about, and it's been something that if anyone's following my episodes, it's been a really important thing to me, is body image, but also how that changes with our hormones. So we're all women in our 40s. And things change.
They sure do.
So I really want to open up this conversation. This is my mission, to get people talking truthfully about where they're at, what's happening in their lives, the changes they feel, because I think the more we can talk about it, the more we can get it out there, the better it is for everyone, because it's all been a bit suppressed, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, like our history, women's history, is very suppressed and quiet, and I think the image that is portrayed of how we should be is a load of BS.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on it?
Well, what I keep seeing and knowing and hearing from me and from my clients, and is that everything, as we're moving through it, from our periods from when we first start up to like perimenopause and menopause and childbirth and all of these things, and putting on weight and losing weight, everything seems to be shrouded in shame. It's like, oh, I can't talk about it, or if you do talk about it, very hush hush, because we were just screaming about it in the in the echoey corner. But it all comes in shame, and when you add, from an energetic point of view, when you add shame into the equation, it just makes everything heavier.
Yeah.
And it makes everything stick.
Yeah. The weight.
Yeah, right.
Heavier period pains.
Yeah.
And for me, it was I took the womb right. It's like a monarchy energetic thing. And actually, yes, there was the energetics around that, right? But I think more so for me, it was the openness of speaking about it in a group of women in a way that I'd never spoken about my body and my periods and my sexual history and all of that before. And then leading a group and mentioning that, and things like, offering your blood and all of this, that for me actually started to unravel this, like, oh my God, I didn't die. Nobody's like coming at me with a pickaxe. That actually was such a strong healing that then changed how I period and how I feel.
Yeah. I think it goes back, doesn't it, to the witch wound a little bit, this suppression of our energy in fear that we're going to be killed.
Right. Quite literally.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I think in my family there's always been a big thing about where we've come from as women, and us being like bigger women, and like stocky or short and stocky, or tall and big arsed and all this kind of stuff, and it being a real theme actually, especially when I was growing up. I'm not, I would never speak badly about any person in our family. It was just a conversation that was there, Oh, you look at, it's a bit tight on your thighs, it's a bit, it's just accentuating this. And interestingly that you brought this up recently, because a friend of mine said to me the other day, Laura, I actually think sometimes I think you might have body dysmorphia. And I was just like, well, that would make sense, because I've been told I was fat since I was, whenever it was, teenage. And I, oddly, it doesn't quite work in alignment with all those things I've just said, but I always loved my period. Like from day dot up until, now, when actually it's coming and going and coming and going. And I went through a period of real grief for it about 4 or 5 years ago, as I knew that my body was shifting and I was having all these weird experiences, and my partner of the time was telling me that I was making it up. and shaming me for, you know, sweating through the night and being, you know, what was perceived to be pretty disgusting. And I was like, well, it's not like great fun for me either.
It's my choice to sweat.
I'm
buckets.
putting weight on, you know, and being told by that person also, you know, because it's a pattern in the family, so therefore I've invited it somehow in because I believed it. And any time I ever looked at my body, I'd be like, oh, I'm fat.
Right.
And even when I was a size 8 and really ill, you know, I'm fat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, good God. I look back now and I'm like, far out, man. I was dying as a little stick.
Yeah.
But then that's also partly, I think, isn't it? Because Laura worked in the opera industry as a successful opera singer. So, you know, when when you're working in the arts, there is so much conditioning on your look and your size. You know, so that probably played into that dysmorphia as well.
For sure. I mean, I will always own the fact that I'm the one that put the pressure on me to lose weight consistently throughout my life until recently, actually, having been, I'd say, single for 3 years now, and I'm into, you know, as you guys know, and some of you may know, I am a tantrica. So what has come with that over the years that I've been studying and kind of looking into Tantra and looking into my body and the exquisiteness of it and the oneness of being, you know, with other people. I just all sorts of revelations, and I'm definitely the most happy I've ever been. I'm definitely the biggest I've ever been, and I'm definitely I've never had a problem taking my clothes off in front of anybody, but and that's bizarre, isn't it? With the whole thing that I've just been talking about, I didn't ever care.
Yeah.
But it was more extrovertism before, and now it's just like, well, I don't really care what you think about me because I know what's inside.
Yeah.
And I know that what I see isn't, in the sense of my body, isn't actually real, because that's through the lenses that I see things, because that's the way I've been brought up to see things.
Yeah.
So I don't take much notice of that anymore. And I love the magnificent shapes of all of the women that come across the path. And everybody seems to have their own stories about this, you know, this whole needing to look away, needing to a certain way or a shape. You know, like I went grey, I had go faster stripes from when I was like 24.
Wow.
And then suddenly white.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you know.
It's like Storm.
Yeah, right. So, and I like it.
It looks beautiful.
But
that's another part of the perception, isn't it? That grey means you're old, and you know, so many we dye our hair. Well, I don't dye my hair, but you know, so many people, it's that perception of like, and if you want to dye your hair, great. Yeah. But if you don't want to, like, why should it be that grey hair means you're like old and past it? And you know, I think that's a big part of it. And I think, you know, one of the things that's got me talking about this so much is that I think a lot of our beauty perception is based on what will be attractive to others.
Yeah.
But what you see so much is that the attraction really is when there's someone shining their soul. It doesn't matter frickin' what they look like.
Yeah,
Exactly.
You know, and you know, weight's like, well, once you've had kids, you're gonna be a different weight. Really.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's just part and parcel of, you know, some women don't and some women do. I mean, for me, I was always like a stick, and I could never put on weight, and that was my issue. And now that's not the case, and that's okay. And it's like, I don't think we have to beat ourselves up about it. Where we're at, I think it's finding that light within.
Yeah.
Which is what you were talking about with the tantric stuff. And Melissa, you do so much spiritual work that your light shines out so brightly as well.
That the physical body, I think, becomes like, so for me, as I was going through my spiritual journey, I started to ignore my body. So a few years ago, I was at the biggest that I'd ever been, and I'm quite short. And in my head, I was going, oh, well, because the body, it's not important, and nobody should be judging me for this and all of this. But actually, I was actually unhealthy. And it was at a point where I realised that actually the body is part of all of this, and it was a mindset. No, it was an energetic shift that happened to me at some point. It was like late 2019, early 2020, when I'd seen a photo of me, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I am in my body. And I realised actually that subconsciously I was putting myself back and not letting myself be seen. If you look at my Facebook of how many photos of me there were, so at that time, you know, I had my 3 kids and all my pictures were of my children, and I was always behind the camera. And I realised that what I was doing was bypassing this body. And so I had this energetic shift, which then started to change my habits, which then led me to losing weight without even really going, okay, I changed how I ate, and I went keto for some time, but it wasn't really to lose weight. It was to get more vibrancy in my body, and that changed things. But then as I started to unpick it, because it always takes some unpicking, I realised that from the age of, this actually came up for me the other day, I remember being 8 and being at school, and we were talking about weight, we were talking measurements, and we had to weigh ourselves the night before, and the teacher came up and said, right, everybody who's 6 stone or whatever it was, stand up. And I saw these people stand up, and I was like, I'm going to stand up, and I wasn't. I was more than that, and I stood up. And I remember the teacher, because felt like, oh, I weigh too much, and all these people weigh this obviously is the perfect weight. At 8 I was, and I stood up, and the teacher said, oh, are you sure that you're that? Because everyone else, I think what the point she was trying to make is, look, if everyone's this weight, then this is the size they're going to be. I wasn't fat as a kid, but I thought I was. And then I know that my mum, my grandma, my aunt all had this 9 stone thing. It was like everything had to be. I've not been 9 stone since I was about 12, and it was right.
Same.
9 stone,
9.5.
But that's my thing. It's like, so I'm 10 stone now. Well, between 9.5 and 10 stone, I fluctuate. But when I'm 9 stone, that's my perfect weight.
Right.
That's in my head, and no one's told me that, because my mum was ill and died, years ago. So no one's ever programmed that in. But when I was thin, before I had Samuel, my first child, I couldn't move past 7.5 stone. So I always wanted to be 9 stone. That was like a goal to get to, and now it's a goal to get the other way.
Right. I stopped weighing myself.
But it's because it's important to stop weighing yourself. I never used to weigh myself, but more recently it's become this thing of like, I need to weigh myself, I need to find out where I'm at. But I think what you said is so interesting about the spiritual thing. It's like obviously being in nutrition, what I saw so often is spiritual people bypassing the physical body and becoming fatter and unhealthy. It's not the weight, it's the unhealthiness, because they're like, well, it's not about that, and it's total that bypassing.
It was,
and then you're like, but you're in this physical body for a reason. Like, we need to be healthy, and for me it's not about like size, but it is about that health. So if you're doing your yoga, if you're eating well, who cares what size we are, but if you're moving and in that space.
So the happy balance I found and find is if I feel good inside and vibrant, and I usually that means I'm putting nice, good, what I perceive to be good things inside my body. Therefore, if I perceive them to be good, my body therefore responds to them well, and I'm doing some physical exercise so that I'm feeling like I'm moving. I then see myself completely differently to, if I've had, I don't do this anymore, but if I've had, a couple of glasses of wine and then I get up the next day and I feel absolutely,
or loads of sugar.
Or sugar, whatever it is, back in those days, it would be like I'd get up and I would see a completely different figure in front of the mirror than like maybe 2 days previously when I had not done whatever it was. And so therefore it was just kind of like, okay, well, what I need to do is just make sure that I'm vibrating.
I know, I can feel you.
Oh my God, friends, I'm so vibrating. My face after all that tantra.
Not with us.
I was about to say, this is a really nice, cozy note,
nice
but
in here
that's
right
not
now.
going on right now.
Anyway.
It might be after your phone keeps vibrating.
Depends where you put it.
when women get together.
Oh,
So,
ladies.
Yeah. I love it. So yeah, I mean, it's a completely different thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're taking care of body and mind and spirit,
that's also that kind of energetic. It's you know, when we move our body, our energy flows more, so we don't get that stagnation.
Yeah.
And when we're eating good, vibrant food that's got life force in it, we are vibrating to a higher frequency, which is so important.
Right.
And that's the thing that always I couldn't understand with people, spiritual people, you know, because I knew so much about food. It was like, but you're going to do even better and have so much more intuition if you eat the food that's going to increase your vibration.
But when you start opening up energetically and you become more energetically sensitive and your body goes, I don't like this, because you're feeling everyone's stuff, you're becoming this psychic
You want to ground
sponge,
yourself more, don't
then
you?
like when I was learning mediumship, it was like, oh, you know, and they call the mediumship diet, you know, the chips, and because it's all the carb stuff, because you want to ground, and if you don't have those good grounding, movement, you know, nourishing practices, then what your body's going to do is, like, especially around here, the solar plexus, which is tracking fear, you're like, oh, I'm just going to, you know,
expand.
Expand. That's a good word, and that definitely happened to me.
Yeah.
But then, as I got better at energetically understanding who I am, rather than trying to draw energy from around me, which is what my default was, is to kind of pull the energy from above and below and come more into that center and listen to the body and go, okay, what do you need? What do you want? How are you? And unpick the shame that I had seen through judgment, like, bless my family, but I'd see, oh, look at her, look at her, and I'm like, what? And then I'd see it in me. So it's unpicking that shame, which is such a heavy, strong energy, that then just things then just started to shift and move for me.
But it's also that thing, isn't it, of like, if you're fat or if you're overweight or if you've got a belly or any of these things, then you're not going to be attractive to the opposite sex.
Right.
That no one's going to want you and you're going to be left, or your husband will go and have an affair or whatever it is. That we're programmed with this perception that if we are not, you know, stick thin with big boobs and a big ass, someone's going, you know, we're going to be left on the shelf. No one's going to want us. And it's like, what a load of bullshit. And it's like, what happens to men? They don't have that same stuff on them, do they?
No, we're not seemingly.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
we don't know.
I'm sure there is an element of
it,
pressure on them to not have man boobs and a big belly, you know.
But not being conspiratorial or anything, because that's definitely not my thing. Is that all of this takes us out of our power, because it keeps us separate from who we think we are. It keeps us from owning who we are and going, well, this is me. Whatever my shape, size, or whatever, this is me and this is who I am, and my worth isn't linked to that. Like, for me, that shift had to come first. But the more, you know, we separate from us, then the less we are in our power, and therefore the less of a nuisance we are. Let's put it that way.
I like that, less of a nuisance, because that's what society has done to women, hasn't it, really? It has suppressed us and it's tried to keep us out of our power because it knows we're freaking vibing badasses. But, you know, society for so long has muted that.
Muted.
Yeah.
Good word.
Yeah, absolutely. For so long, I would seek approval, whatever it was, that acceptance from that would be man.
Validation.
Validation, thank you, from a man. And that would all be like, oh, it's okay, I'm okay, everything's fine because they find me attractive. As long as they find me attractive.
Exactly.
And now, having, I've got to say, it's such a relief, having learned how to light myself up from the inside, and it doesn't have to be tantric. It can be anyway. It does not have to be that. But yes, actually, it is. Exactly that. Being able to do that for myself in like the most sublimely extraordinary way, you know, then what I've done is gone like, well, actually, I don't need that for approval. I don't need that to do that for me. I can do this for myself. And what comes for me, it's not going to be the same for everybody. Everyone's got different shit anyway.
Freedom, isn't it?
It's freedom. And so when and if I choose to take a partner next, I will attract one that is hopefully equally as awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, and not dependent upon me looking a certain way, him looking a certain way, or being a certain way, because actually
It's
there's
beyond that.
we've got that shit sorted.
Yeah. You're meeting in a space beyond the limitations of the physical body.
Right.
And of course everyone's going to have their own thing, but that was my thing.
Yeah.
You know, the real kind of like, actually I didn't like the way that I was enough to bother to learn how to please myself enough or feel good enough in my body by myself. And
But then again, that's conditioning as well, isn't it? Because we're taught, like when I was growing up, I didn't think that women masturbated. Or it was just like the sluts that did, you know, it was that preconception. So I didn't masturbate until I was in my 20s. I mean, it's nuts. Like, where would I be now without it? Jesus Christ. Like, whew.
Not vibing.
No, not vibing. Because you do, what I find for me is that, you know, when I connect with myself and my own pleasure and my own joy, what you're doing is you're creating a bigger magnetic field that pulls people in on your level of where you are. And it's about joy for me. It's like finding that joy through every cell in your body, and then you live in a space of joy as opposed to a space of needing, as you said, that approval from someone else and that other person that's going to satisfy your needs.
Yeah. Interestingly, I think I said I might have had this conversation with my mum recently, which was like, Mum, did I always, you know, did I masturbate much? Did we talk about that when I was young? Because I distinctly remember having this conversation and going into the bathroom where my mum and dad were having a chat, and I was just like, is it all right that I'm like, because it feels really good. And aside from that conversation, they were wonderfully liberal about things, but I remember Mum was like, yeah, you're at it all the time, love. And I was just like, oh God.
Things haven't changed.
But I would like, yeah, exactly, right, what's changed? But I would like squirrel away and do it quietly, you know, because it didn't, because of the frequency of it, because it just felt so bloody good. And it took years to undo that.
Yeah.
And to actually like learn a different way that wasn't quite so squirrely, you know, like, and to feel good about that. Because I remember it was fine, like when my parents were super open, obviously like I did it behind closed doors and that was my privacy, and they were wonderful about privacy with all of us. But it was, you know, at the teenage years, I remember it coming up in a conversation with all my girlfriends. I didn't say anything because I was terribly shy in that sort of way. Not that you can imagine that now, but one of my friends said, oh yeah, you know, I do, and it just went deathly silent, and everyone were, and I was like,
Shame,
note to
judgment.
self, must not speak about this.
Right.
You know, and
Shame,
total shame and
judgment.
judgment, right?
Right.
Yeah. And after that, it was just like, okay, keep this squirrely away.
Yeah.
You know, don't ever admit it.
But yet, men can.
Right?
Men laugh
Whack
about
it out.
Yeah.
They love it.
They love it when women. I mean, they love it when women are doing
yeah,
it. They
of course
love the
they do.
thought of it. I mean, my husband gets really turned on at the thought of me masturbating. It's like it's great. He loves it. But you know, growing up, like it's one thing for like boys masturbate, men masturbate, but women, and I think it is changing more now. There is more waking up to it. Slowly, I think women in their 40s are waking up to it more than anyone else, to be honest.
Yeah. And then it will filter down into the young. We are this bridge generation, and we're the ones that are unpicking and unpacking all of the things. You know, as you were talking about, you know, this needing to be accepted. Like I was thinking, I was watching Bridgerton, you know, and they're there, and all the women are just there, like looking all pretty, waiting to be chosen by the suitors, and it's like, what the shit's that?
Yeah,
exactly.
Right? And so I think for us, it's like, well, let's unpick it, which comes back always, whenever I have these conversations about anything really, it comes back to the same principle of know yourself.
Yeah.
And this is like every spiritual tradition. If you boil it all down to zero, it's know thyself. And not just know thyself and accept and love yourself. And that comes through everything. Who I am as a spirit, who I am as a body, who I am as a female, who I am as an opinion, like all of the stuff. It's like the more comfortable we can get with that, and the more we can move into just, you know, if you think about the vibrational scale, the more we move into that level of acceptance, so we can unravel the shame, the judgment, the anger, the fear, and all of this stuff. Well, then we can start to move into euphoria, enlightenment, joy, bliss, and then it just becomes a thing. And then what happens, the irony, is then our energy body becomes this amazing magnetic field, which then draws the people, and everyone's like, I want to be in her space.
Exactly. That's exactly right. But we go at it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Thinking that we have to present ourselves and make this exterior, that shining, radiant thing, in order to attract. But actually, it's that inner work.
Inside,
But it's also, I think, it's not just the inner work of us now. It's that inner work of our ancestors. You know, as you said, what we're unpicking is generations of control, of suppression, of silencing. Of the earth, even. You know, it's like the most silencing that's gone on is the power of the earth, and we are all so intrinsically linked. And you look at what goes on in society, most people are with strip lights, concrete, shoes, everything to separate them from their true power. And interestingly, we are energetic beings, so we have an electromagnetic field, and the only way that fully recharges is on the earth, barefoot, actually on the proper earth.
And who better to completely cut of all their power than the women, who are intrinsically of the earth, as are the men. But you know, it's kind of like, come on, guys. Come on, women. Let's step back on the earth. Let's recharge. Let's actually.
But there's still, you go into the spa with your dirty, grubby feet, and they're like, "Oh, look at her. She's disgusting." Right? Right? It's just, we're getting there.
We are getting there.
So last thing, your top tip for the audience, whatever it may be.
You start. No one else is going to be fun.
No.
Masturbate.
Yeah, exactly what I was going to say.
Find your inner joy.
Light yourself up from the inside out, whatever that means to you, and whatever brings you the joy. You know, from inside, heart out, and yes, yoni, if you're called that way.
Amazing, beautiful.
I think what I would have wanted to hear back when I was really struggling with everything is just that nothing's separate, that who you are, that it's nothing separate. Your body, your mind, your soul, nothing needs to be judged. Nothing that you've done is anyone else's business. But in order to bring that healing in, what if you could just spend a little bit of time either looking in the mirror or like really just connecting in with your body, and just notice where the mind is saying, you know, if you're looking in the mirror and your eyes go to your tummy and your instant thought is, oh, you're disgusting, well, hear yourself say it and then change that, because your body's hearing, your body's listening. And you know, when I've connected with my body and it said, you know, Melissa, you've not been very nice to me recently, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, you know, I've kept you well, I've kept you healthy, I've kept you, you know, going and experiencing all of these things, and all I've done is give it back a load of shame and disgust. I think if somebody would have just said to me, it's okay to love even a part of yourself, then that maybe would have helped unlock the door a little bit closer, quicker.
I think mine would be get barefoot on the earth and just breathe into the earth and remember your power as part of this magnificent creation. You know, we are part of something truly magnificent. And I think also, two things: connect with other women, you know, not in that bitchy, superficial way, but actually in sisterhood. Because when you come together with other women from a place of heart open, we're all the same. Let's celebrate being women, because we're freaking awesome.
We are freaking awesome.
We are.
And we need to share that with each other and celebrate. You know? Instead of trying to knock each other down and feeling shame and guilt and jealousy and all this stuff. Like, when we come together, it brings us all up.
Right.
And that's what we need to do more of.
Yeah, and turn the TV off.
Do what feels nice. Do what feels right. Do what feels true.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you guys for chatting with me on this sofa in this lovely spa.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Exactly. Nice to see you all, and see you all very soon on Wise Women Week.